This podcast is brought to you by the Wakefield Children's Bed Appeal, featuring Andy Pears, Helen McDonald and Kelly Smith.
So obviously we're here today wearing our pyjamas on a comfy sofa. Three of us are getting together to talk about something a little bit more serious.
So why are we in our pyjamas, Andy?
So we're here today to have a conversation around the issue of childbed poverty and the work that's been done in Wakefield to try and address that. And that's why we've got our pyjamas and blankets, and that's why we're kind of getting cuddled up on a sofa.
Absolutely. I mean, when I heard about the how big the issue around bed poverty was, particularly, I mean, as we've said, across the whole region, but in our own district in Wakefield, the number was actually quite shocking.
Yeah.
So it's 6,000 children that are without beds in our districts.
Yeah. It's against a backdrop that the figures can sometimes feel quite overwhelming. So the charity Bernardo's did a report last year. It was called No Crib for a Bed. Yeah. And their estimation of the number of children in bed poverty in the UK is actually around 900,000.
Wow. Gosh.
So when you look at it at that scale, and when Zarach started 7 years ago, that figure was estimated to be 400,000. So despite the work that charities like Zarach and others have done, it is against the backdrop of a doubling of the number of children experiencing that situation. Of course, we've had the pandemic, cost of living crisis. So there are a number of factors why that number's doubled. But from that big picture of 900,000, around 6,000 right here in the district.
And I mean, that figure was really hit home with me, that the amount of children. I mean, I've got my own children, and the thought of them not having a bed each night, that's where the bed appeal really spoke to myself and to my team as well. I mean, I don't know if that was the same for you.
Yeah. So we've got involved in different charity events at Christmas over the past few years, but when we spoke with Prosper and they were launching the bed campaign, and they explained to Helen and myself what it was about and how our businesses could get involved, it was a bit of a no-brainer, wasn't it? We've both got kids and take it for granted that they've got a bed to sleep in. And so the fact that there are 6,000 kids just in Wakefield is out. It's just shocking. Yeah. It's a shocking number. We absolutely wanted to get on board with the campaign. But I would like to know more about it, if I'm honest. We know what we know and how we can help, but it'd be interesting to hear a lot more about it from yourself.
Well, I'll take you back to the beginning then.
Okay.
So make yourself comfy. And I will
very much hard, don't you worry about that.
Bedtime story.
And I will tell you the story. So it all begins in a classroom in Leeds, and our founder, she's a school teacher, she's called Bex, and she had cause to speak to one of the kids in her year 6 class, asking him why he was struggling to engage with what was being taught. And that led to a conversation, and it's that kind of thing that you might ask. What was it? Was it on the PlayStation all night? Was it late night? Yeah. Did you not get a good night's sleep? Yeah. And he looked at her and he said, "What's a good night's sleep?" He said, "I haven't got a bed." And you can imagine just being faced with that story. It just completely took her back.
Well, you'd be like, "What do you mean you've not got a bed?" Yeah. That'd be my reaction.
Do you share a bed?
What?
In your bunk bed? It's kind of, that would be your initial thought.
I mean, the particular story there is that unfortunately Mum had to leave a relationship very quickly due to domestic abuse. And so whilst the family had been placed into accommodation, the only furniture in that house was one white plastic garden chair. So Bex and her friends and family couldn't find support for beds. So unfortunately, we'll all have heard over the years about the increase in the use of food banks. Mm-hmm. So she could find emergency food for the family. She could find help to kind of top up gas and electric meters. But beds are big, they're bulky, they're not cheap. Yeah. And she just couldn't find that kind of help. So Bex and her friends and family scrambled some money together to buy beds for this boy in her class. Yeah. It turned out he had 2 siblings as well. Oh. They took the beds round, delivered the beds, and they thought that is this act of kindness, and that's it.
And that's where it began.
But the story really kicks in when 2 months later, And this, when we talk about heroes, this is the hero for me. Mum turns up at the school gates about 2 months later with money in her hand and says to Bex, "There's the money for those beds."
Oh, wow. That's...
And Bex saying, "What are you doing? We didn't do this to get the money back."
Yeah.
And she said, "Look, I've been able to settle in. I'm working now. I've been able to sort things out, get steadied a little bit. And there's the money." And Mum said, "You have to do this because you have to now do for other families what you did for us."
And that just shows the impact of what was given to them. And they wanted, it does have that knock-on effect, doesn't it? Somebody being able to reach out to somebody else.
And I think you've just highlighted a really important point, what you mentioned earlier. People don't necessarily mean to find themselves in these situations. It's not necessarily their fault, is it?
I think that every time we have the good fortune to be in a position where we can share some of the story, I'm always keen to point out to people, which is at your worst time, you've probably got a view of the families that we support. Yeah. Well, the first thing is that's never the kids' fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where we are focused on the kids. But at the same time, let's help you understand the stories that sit behind the referrals that we get.
Yeah.
So one of the big things is that a lot of the families that refer to us is because of struggles with mental health and emotional well-being with the adult or adults in the house.
Yeah.
The one that probably isn't a surprise is financial concerns. So it might be about debt, it might be about problems with benefits, or it might be no access to public funds. So there's a number of financial concerns. And the other one, unfortunately, and all too common, is domestic violence, where we see too many families that we support have been in that situation. If you think about what those kids have experienced at such young ages, there's one family very recently where, and this is just, an example of what we see. It was a family, and very sadly, a few years ago, Mum lost their daughter, so the kids lost their sister at the age of 10, and it was after a long illness. That led to some real struggles within the family, as you can imagine how horrible that will be. And so we were able, through the referral that we got, kids are growing up. The room that the daughter had that passed away, it was a case of son now needed to sleep in that room separate from sisters. You've got to think about appropriate sleeping arrangements. And that was where that need really came through. And so now the beds have been provided, so you've got children who are growing up after such a tragic situation that you would never wish on anybody. Those kids have now got their sleeping arrangements that they need. And, that's the kind of thing, that's one of the stories that you don't hear too much of. But that's just kind of one of the examples of the kind of situations that we help. Remember one dad, single dad, 4 boys ranging from 4 to 14, goes into work one day, has a terrible accident, breaks his back.
Oh my goodness.
And he's saying, "I'm so used to providing for my kids."
Yeah.
Now, that was dad and 4 boys in a 2-bedroom house. And so we were able to go and see the dad and see the family, and we were able to come up with a solution. And in practice, it sounds really simple. The solution was 2 sets of bunk beds. But again, overcrowding in houses is one of the things that we see a lot of. And so there's 2 stories, one through kind of a real tragedy in terms of the loss of a young child, and one through a dad who was working hard and just broke his back. So as much as all the things that we might expect, there are all these individual stories about the families we support.
So how do the families know about you, or how do you know about the families that need help?
Yeah, I was going to say about, you said that it was a child going through school, it was a teacher that identified it. Is that the common way that it's, children are identified or not?
This is the one where we've had our own kind of very heart-wrenching conversations internally. We want to provide the bed for a child, so it gives that child the best opportunity to engage at school. That's both academically and socially, and in some of those other classes and clubs that kids might get the chance to do. So it isn't just the bed for the sake of the bed. It's the bed to support engagement at school, because everybody understands that one of the best ways to break that often generational cycle of poverty is through education. So that's the entirety of why we're here. It's the bed for school to break a cycle.
Yeah.
So that means that all the referrals that we receive come from schools.
Right. All of
Okay.
them, right.
So I think it's really important that people understand that by the time we meet a family and then assess the need and then provide the bed, by the time we even get to that point, the school has referred that family. So if you start to think about the sensitivity that has to take place in the school, teacher isn't just going to walk into the class and go, all right, kids, hands up if you're in bed poverty.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I was just going to say. I mean, I can only speak on behalf of my kids and the school that my kids went to, you know, the little school in Ossett. If there's 6,000 kids in Wakefield alone, I'm guessing there will be some children in Ossett that will have experienced this or that will need it, and you wouldn't know.
Also,
You would not know.
Could there potentially be more than 6,000? Is it 6,000 kids that we know of? Is there potentially more than that?
It's estimated.
Right. Okay.
And with an estimate, you try not to overplay it.
Okay.
Right.
So it could well be.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it is that situation whereby children might be presenting themselves at school, and that's real credit to parents who will having daily struggles just to kind of keep the household wheel turning.
Imagine there's children masking a lot of things
Absolutely.
that are happening behind closed doors, that they're turning up and functioning each day.
Well, nationally, there's 4.3 million children living in relative poverty. That's around 30%. So if you now think of a class of 30 children,
Yeah.
probably 10 children. Now, you take certain districts. So, I mean, if I take Bradford, for example.
Yeah.
So in Leeds, child poverty is unfortunately above the national average, around about 32%. But in Bradford, it's over 40%.
Wow.
You take Middlesbrough, well over the national average.
Yeah.
So there are pockets. And even in a district like Wakefield, you'll know as well as anybody, there are certain parts of the district where things are okay.
Yeah.
But then, literally just a postcode away,
Yeah.
then you can see actually there are people living very different experiences. So what we do is we ask the schools to register with us so that they can make a referral.
Right.
We then try and provide information to the schools about what bed poverty is. So I'm going to here's the science bit now, if you remember that advert. So the science of it really is that it's where a family cannot provide a child with the sleeping arrangements they need due to a lack of means. So we don't make any judgment whatsoever on any cultural preferences. This is purely about a family that knows they need different arrangements for their children but cannot make that happen. So that's bed poverty.
Yeah.
Right.
In terms of the signs and symptoms of it, everybody expects that to be kids coming into school and falling asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that does happen. But it's also about excessive absence because children just can't get into school. It could be about punctuality. When children are there, of course, it can be falling asleep. But there's another flip side to this as well, which is if you are deprived from sleep on a consistent basis, you might actually be the opposite of falling asleep. You could be very hyper. You could be almost delirious with that deprivation.
Yeah.
And that's the bit where we want teachers to understand that. And I mean, again, I'm saying this, teachers do understand this.
Yeah.
But that's the bit which is we might immediately want to go, it's ADHD.
Yeah.
No, actually, it might be something
Let's
as
look
simple
at the
as
other factors that could be
before we get to
playing
that
into
point.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's other little things, which is that if you've got a family that can't afford to wash the bed clothing on a suitably regular basis, it could be these signs that children are scratching quite persistently. It's all those little things that we want to help teachers understand, that if they see those signs, is there a gentle conversation they might be able to have with that child? Then it needs to be had with the family, because the consent when it comes to us the referral when it comes to us has got to be consent driven.
Yeah. And do you ever see that as is it ever received as a negative, or is there ever almost, maybe they don't want to admit it, from families that they do need the help?
Yeah. So I think that there's a couple of things there. Let's think about, I'm going to do this because of where we are. Let's think about kind of real upstanding working class folk. And we know that Wakefield has just got a proud history of that. So you've got folk that just kind of like, I don't want to acknowledge or admit. I'm doing my very best and I'm doing everything I can, and it's still not joining up. But to ask proud people that are doing everything they can to acknowledge that what they're doing isn't still quite getting where they and their family need to be. I mean, you're asking a lot for people to admit that, which is why the conversation's got to be very, very careful. There's also cultural things going on here, which is in some cultures, the idea of taking help from anybody beyond your family is just not the thing to do.
Really?
Yeah, and that's the bit where that can bring shame on a family.
Yeah.
That if that family is seen to have taken charity of any kind.
Yeah.
You've also got language barriers. So you're thinking about sometimes people can't express their upset, or they sometimes can't even express their thanks.
Yeah.
You know, because culturally some languages are a bit more kind of blunt than our language might be. We can be quite expressive. Other cultures are very different in that way. So I think we've got all those barriers that we work with, but the referral comes through from a school, primary or secondary. From that point, we then make contact with the family and we go out and we do a home visit. So we want to, first of all, understand the sleep environment.
Yeah.
And you might notice I didn't call it the bedroom, because so many of the kids, they're not in a bedroom.
Yeah.
We've seen kids sleeping in the hallway underneath the radiator because it's the warmest part of the house. So families are turning down radiators everywhere else in the house, keeping that one going, and the kids sleeping underneath there. So sometimes it's not a bedroom that we're talking about here. So we want to make sure we can understand the sleep environment, because the first promise we want to make is to a family that may have been told the answer is no, no, no. We want that family to know that we can say that the answer is yes.
Yeah.
The other thing to remember is everything we provide is brand new. So we get lots of people getting in touch. Can we donate a second-hand bed or mattress? No, it's brand new. And we want a family to know that their school thinks they're worth it, which is why they wanted to make the referral. And we're around there now because the school has told us about this. So families who don't trust school, think school is just another authority.
Yeah, sticking the nose in.
They're thinking your school thinks you're amazing. They know things can be difficult. They think it might be even more amazing if everybody could get a good night's sleep. So that's what we're here for. Let's get these beds to you. That's the first promise we want to make to you, and it's brand new kit that you're getting.
Is it just a bed? Did they just get a bed, or do they get more in the package than just a bed?
Yeah, so again, families are different, but essentially the full bed bundle would be the bed frame, would be the mattress, it's the pillows, the duvets, the bed clothing, and hey, guess what? Like we're wearing, it's the pyjamas.
Pair of pyjamas. And how much per package does that cost?
So the price varies slightly, but the simplest way to say it's £150 to us for each full bed bundle.
Right.
Now, why I say it varies is because we are supported so well by the bed industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got relationships with some very, very well-known bed manufacturers. We've got one of those manufacturers that now donates to us 25% of the mattresses we need in a year.
Wow.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So what we are trying to do, even though cost of living has gone up, we are trying to keep that cost of the bed bundle as low as we can through securing these relationships with bed manufacturers and retailers and suppliers. We've got people that are saying, look, we can't donate everything, so let's do it at cost or just below, and then let's give you some donated on top of that.
Yeah.
And it's incredible the outpouring of support that people give us to do that.
So the likes of Helen and I, obviously SoluPak and Juice personnel, we got involved through the Prosper Partnership. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're matching every donation that they get pound for pound. So we wanted to do this podcast today, didn't we, to sort of spread awareness and raise awareness, because I didn't know anything about it until Prosper spoke to us. And I don't think many people do know about this campaign in Wakefield. But as a business, I think you're doing similar. We're not buying clients Christmas presents this year. We're going to donate the money we would spend into the bed fund. And I just think clients will appreciate that 100%. More than receiving some quality treats and a bottle of wine.
It's been really well received by our customers. They're really, really thankful that they know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and they can see the impact very clearly from the money that we're donating.
This podcast is brought to you by the Wakefield Children's Bed Appeal, working with our partners, Zarach, SoluPak and Juice personnel. To get involved, you can visit linktr.ee/Prosper Wakefield.
I'm 24 years in the charity and social enterprise world now, and every time I say it, I think, oh, I'm getting old. But I think that Zarach is such a special charity. I've not seen a charity this young, because we're only 6 years old as a registered charity.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I thought it'd been around a lot longer.
Yeah.
I've not really seen a charity this young and this relatively small compared to the likes of what I would call your mega charities.
How many have you got in your team at the moment?
So we've got 20 staff,
20, right.
but we have got a far, far bigger movement of volunteers.
Yeah.
And really the work of the staff team is to create the right support and the safety for volunteers to be able to lead the services that we provide, which is just an incredible thing to do. It's the right way to help people get involved and raise awareness of what we're doing, but it's also a really good way to try and run a charity that's very respectful of using those precious pounds that people give us in the best way that we can.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, didn't you, about volunteering opportunities? And you said, it's not just about dropping a bed off or driving a van. People can get involved in other ways. Do you want to tell us the different ways in which people can get involved?
Well, we'll start with the obvious one then, which is that so we get lots of businesses that might give their staff a couple of days a year to go and do some volunteering in the community.
Yep.
And I think what's quite special about what we do at Zarach is that we have an activity that is ripe for volunteering in a very, what I can call it, very up close way. So I think you get people that might volunteer to do litter picks in a community or to kind of redecorate a community centre. Trust me, nothing about those is wrong. It's great. Anything. For me, just volunteering full stop is the win to society.
I have heard rumours, though, that in some charities literally have a wall that they keep to be repainted because there's that they need volunteer days. It'll be like, let's go let them paint this wall. So rather than people doing that.
Well, like I say, I think that my experience over the 24 years has said the biggest win to society is that if somebody came and volunteered at Zarach and that gave them, forgive the phrase, gave them that bug to go, there's something I can do here. Even if they then went to a charity that was more local to them and did volunteering in a different way, I'd be thinking there's the win. But in terms of Zarach, people can get in touch with us. They can just go to the website. They'll be able to kind of get in touch. And with the volunteering, if it's for bed deliveries, we'll give people information before the day about what to expect and to come dressed, not in pyjamas, but to come along in clothing that would be suitable for the kind of bed delivery work. And when people then arrive at the warehouse, there is the health and safety briefing. There is that introduction about what they are likely to see. And when people come back from their volunteering with us on that day, they'll be with either a member of our staff team or one of our regular lead volunteers. They'll be out in the van and they'll go and deliver beds to families. When people come back, generally there's two things that you get. One is that they are upset, or the other one is that they're angry.
Yeah.
And
it must be such a raw emotion for people to experience.
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying I think it's a great volunteering opportunity, because you're saying I want to support a charity here, and they've given me an experience that has taken me to a part of our society that, one, I didn't know existed, and secondly, I don't want to think about. But now you've seen it and you can't now
ignore it then.
No. So that's one way. The other thing is that there's fundraising activities that people can do to help us. So people can volunteer and get in touch to say, we might do talks at Rotary clubs, and you might have people that are just really great at that. It might be that people like the idea of doing talks at school assemblies. Some people, the lugging of beds around isn't right for them, but there are so many other different ways that people can volunteer. We've even got people volunteering in terms of what we're going to do about influencing policy and practice, because their professional experience or skill has actually been in that field. So there's so many different ways beyond just the delivery of beds, but of course the delivery of beds is massively important.
I mean, we're both looking forward to be able to get involved in the more volunteering side. Obviously, financial we've put in, but we want to be able to. For us, it's more about being a partnership and being able to work more. And it's a great opportunity for us to be able to do that.
Well, that partnership's really important for us, because this is a bit where kind of spoiler for anybody listening, this is where we get maybe a bit heavy. Over the last kind of 10, 15 years, there is no way of getting around it. We've experienced poverty production in this country, not poverty reduction. If it was 400,000 children in bed poverty 7 years ago and it's now 900,000,
Wow.
that is a sad indictment on our society.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we have that level of need in society, it is philanthropy that steps in
Yeah.
to help make this possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the support from your businesses and from others like you is just what we need. And it might not be the money, because people say, well, I can't give money, but actually I can free up a bit of staff time.
I'm not sitting here saying we've put in absolutely
No,
loads.
we haven't.
It's only small what we can give,
Yeah,
but every bit helps.
It does, but we, like Helen said, it was more about the volunteering and getting our staff involved and just raising awareness in itself. I think that's really important.
And being able to do something on our own doorstep, having an impact in our local community. You know, there's so many amazing charities out there doing amazing things.
Yeah.
But, you know, for us, it's being able to be involved in something that really does have an impact on your doorstep.
And the future of Wakefield staff, ultimately, in recruitment and manufacturing.
Yeah.
These people could be our staff in the future. So it's making sure that they're getting through and they're...
Well, this is what we want the decision makers to think about. So sometimes we think about poverty as a money thing. You know, that's how it's defined.
Yeah.
What percentage of household income compared to the average.
Yeah.
So poverty is defined as a money metric. We think it's something quite different than that. We think that poverty is a chronic, long-term and debilitating health condition. Now, we saw very recently, didn't we, when we had there was a global pandemic, and we saw the lengths that a government can go to if it wants to address something at that scale.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that if you've got 4.3 million children growing up in poverty, they'll grow up poorly.
Yeah.
They'll grow up not in the best of health because of the mouldy walls and kind of all the breathing issues. Yeah. If you're deprived of sleep, your brain development suffers. You're more likely to suffer from other conditions. Obesity is there. Yeah. Poverty kind of means that you're maybe not eating the best food or skipping meals. Yeah. So we want government to think about poverty as a long-term health condition. Now, what you've also got is you've got governments that always say, we don't want to borrow for day-to-day spending. We only want to borrow to invest in infrastructure. Yeah. Well, I want somebody to tell me that 4.3 million children are not
investment.
It's an investment, though, isn't it?
It's an investment in the future.
If you're going to borrow to get me to London on a train 10 minutes quicker, and if you're going to spend billions on that, break the cycle.
Who's going to drive the trains?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because it all links in, which is we don't want NHS to be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of help 4.3 million children feel healthier.
I mean, it just feels like such an easy solution. Obviously, I know this is much a wider issue, but when you put it like that, it just feels like, you know, that one thing that a child is missing, the ripple effect and the, you know, the issues that can develop from that are just tremendous, really.
And it isn't just the children as well. There's one story that we've got, which is so we've got a new 3-minute video that's out on social media now that people can have a look at. And one of the families in that video is Dorcas. And she describes how every night in her house, it was like a war at bedtime, fighting for the space in the bed. Oh. And so she wanted to get a qualification so she could get a better job. But she's working deep into the night. She's waking up bleary-eyed in the morning. The kids are going, Mama, I don't want to go to school today. And then the referral came in and we were able to provide the beds to the kids. And she's saying how calm that is now at night. She now gets a good night's sleep. She's now been able to go to Leeds City College for the last 3 years.
Amazing.
And she's now studying and she's progressing her life. So this thing of the bed, it changes the rhythm of the house.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this quite lightheartedly. When we go back to see families, and let's say it's a 2-adult household, we're now able to say, okay, have you had a nice bit of cosy time on the sofa? Yeah. Because the sofa's now not being used as a bed.
Yeah.
So the kids are now going, I want to get away from the folks. Yeah. So the kids are going to their haven, which is their bedroom now because it has a bed in it. And they are having their time to chill out and read their book or get away from the moaning and the whinging of the parents. Yeah. But we're able to say to the parents, how's life for you?
Yeah.
And it's like, we've started watching a bit of telly together now and, you know, we're having a bit of quiet time before we go to bed. So it's the rhythm of the house that just changes massively. And I think what is so special about what we do is, you remember the adverts, which is try and change your mattress every 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the truth is, you look at the spec of these mattresses, and since being at Zarach, I've learned so much about the science of mattresses. It's phenomenal to see kind of how things are produced. But mattresses last more than 8 years. But it's a good message that people have heard. When we leave a family's home after delivering, and today we're sitting here now, I know my team are out there now, and they're putting these beds in these houses. Some of those kids will get home from school today, and you just know what that look is going to be like when they get home, because mum or dad or the adults in the house might have built those beds today, and they'll say, "Hey, come and have a look." And that will happen to
I
them.
know, that's horrific.
That does hit you.
But just before we leave, what we're able to say to that family is, if you can now just look after what we've done, you're done for 8 years. And I don't know, in my 24 years in this world, charities, I don't know many that will do something now that's going to last 8 years. You've got people from businesses that will be out volunteering with us today. And you can look them in the eye and you can say to them, do you know what you did today? That kid who's gone to primary school at the age of 4 that got a bed from you today, you've seen him right the way through, or seen her right the way through primary school.
To high school.
That's amazing.
And that's just how awesome this is. That 150 quid.
I know, it's just nothing, is it?
Does that?
It's literally nothing.
Yeah. It's incredible to do. And every day we are so fortunate that we are the kind of charity where we get such wonderful feedback from families. But one of the bits of feedback that I think really always stands out to me is when we get feedback from somebody that's working at the school. So it might be a classroom assistant or a pastoral worker or a safeguarding person. And when you get that feedback that says to you, we've now got a meeting in place with the family, they're talking to us. And now that might be for the first time, or the relationship has now been rebuilt. That's the bit where, forgive the pun, but we can rest easy, because that kid is back where they should be, which is engaging with friends, children of that age, in that social setting that we call school. And the family is now talking to the school again. We were started in a classroom, and we believe that that's where we loop it back to. It's the classroom for the kids. Now, we know we've got work to do thinking about the number of children that are just missing from education. But right now our focus has been on the children. Out of the 900,000 children, we believe about 80% are at school to some degree. So that's where we're focused at the moment. We've absolutely got to be thinking about the children that are missing from education at some point. But right now that's where we are with the schools. But just think about that. What you do today is going to last 8 years.
I mean, do you have any idea how many beds have been provided by Zarach in that sort of 6 years period?
Would it surprise you to say that, yes, I do know that?
I thought you might.
You'd have thought I'd prep for today.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, the reason it's so easy to tell you the answer to that is that one of the things that Zarach has been incredibly fortunate to have is a local, regional and national media profile. And I think it's because our founder, Bex, is a school teacher. When she goes on BBC Breakfast or Look North, she's just got this credibility because she is a teacher. She sees this every day.
She's seen it from the start,
Yeah. And she wanted this to happen because there was no provision. You know, if people ever said to us, we're going to set up a charity, should I? I'd always say, no. Never set up a charity if you don't have to. The only reason Zarach exists is because we couldn't see another provision of this kind.
So is there no other charity that does anything like this then?
So there are.
Right.
So what you've got is you've got different things whereby you've got very localised schemes that are working in areas. You've got people might have watched Children in Need on TV the other week. There are some programmes that kind of fulfil essentials. What I would say is that the thing about the Zarach model is we're not just the delivery company. We are the engagement with the school. We support any plan that the family's on. We visit the family to assess the needs. We then deliver the product and then we follow up. So when people support Zarach, the very obvious thing they're supporting is the way that we provide that bed. But it is so much more. It's the fact that we call them marketplace events, But what you'll find is we are able to say to families, through the conversation we have, here's 3-4 other things that are going on in your life that you need support with. Well, we're running an event where we bring lots of agencies together. So the family only has to go once and might be in a room with 10 agencies.
Yeah.
And we put lunch on. So come along. It's during school hours.
Mm-hmm.
Family can go around and meet maybe 10 different agencies, of which maybe 4 or 5 are the ones that we identified with them, because we want the family to engage in that other support that they need.
So much more impactful then by doing it that way, yeah.
But we're
Amazing.
welcomed over the door.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine knocking on somebody's door now that you've never met before and saying, I want to come in and I want to see where you're all sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to get through the door.
No, absolutely not.
But people know we are Zarach.
Yeah.
And they know we're there to try and give this incredible charitable offer. And they know that we're trying to say yes to them, where a lot of people are trying to catch them out or say no.
Mm-hmm.
And we are welcomed into that home. And that is a real privilege to
Yeah.
be welcomed in.
Imagine.
And then to ask that very intimate of questions, please can you show us where everybody's sleeping? You know, that's back to the thing we were talking about before. There's a pride thing. I don't want to show you,
Yeah.
but people show us
Yeah.
because we've got to get that bit right.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that some of the, what you have seen has been, very varied in every home that you go into. I mean, you mentioned about somebody sleeping in a hallway, but, I'm guessing anything can become a bed for a child that doesn't have a bed, whether it's a sofa.
I think the picture was a bath.
Yeah,
wasn't
and
it?
people have
Some
made
bedding in
makeshift
a
beds,
bath.
I'm guessing, bean bags, whatever it may be that they have.
We had one dad, and again, talking about pride, maybe top of your landing.
Yeah.
And there's like, before you then maybe go up the stairs, and you've got that maybe little bit of space.
Yeah.
A dad had gone and got some timber, and he built a bed frame attached into that wall there. The challenge you've got though is that it's at the top of the stairs and no
The
stairgate.
traffic.
Yeah.
And
Well, they
everybody
could
goes,
roll out of bed and
Yeah.
fall downstairs.
But there's the dignity in this, that somebody's saying, I want to do well for my kids. And so that's the resourcefulness that people are trying to work out.
Yeah.
So you see all sorts of things, and they make you feel pretty uplifted because you're going, we know that we're in a home here that despite the challenges, these folks care about their kids.
Yeah.
And they look at what they've done. They've made the best of this.
Yeah.
Well, actually now there's an amazing charitable offer that we only get to do because of things like this. That means that actually we can give that family a solution that's more in line with what they need.
Yeah.
I've got a before and after photo, and when I put it in the presentation and I show people, I say to them, what is it you're seeing here? And people go, I'm seeing a bed. And I think there's something else that you're seeing in that, and it's called pride, it's called dignity, and the biggest one is called hope.
Yeah.
Because that picture that I show, there were some curtains in that room and they were like a deep navy blue. Well, somebody's decided just on the little bit of the wall behind the beds, just to paint the wall a deep navy blue that matches the curtains. And that's one of the things that we see. There's a big percentage of families that now start to do other things on home improvement.
That resonates.
Yeah.
You know yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
When you've done something, it spurs you on to do more, and that one small piece.
That one little piece of the jigsaw, isn't it? So look, we've got that, so now let's do something else to make it nicer or better.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, one of the things that I think it's always really helpful for people to know is, if we were to ask somebody, is sleep good for you? We'd all go, of course it is. We know what it's like when we have one bad night of sleep.
Yeah, 100%.
The next thing is, when you say to people from any part of the political spectrum, do you think children should have a bed? Everybody goes, yes. And I think that's why people resonate with what we're doing here, because people know from their own personal experience of a few bad nights sleep, they know how important sleep is. So everybody just gets that. And the other thing that nobody argues with is that children should have a bed. Irrespective of whatever we think about anything else, those kids don't deserve this.
No.
But what people have got every right to say is, well, okay, sleep, good, bed's good, but why should we give money, or why should we volunteer? Why should we support you?
Yeah.
Why is your way of working the thing that we should support, especially if we want a lot of support to reach more children?
Yeah.
So this is the bit where, I don't know whether it's the same in the commercial sector, but we call it the impact measurement. So it's that bit about, is it working? Is it making a difference? So what we know is that of the schools that we have provided the beds to children for that they've referred, 95% of those schools are saying that the provision of that bed from Zarach has had a positive impact on that child. That's huge.
Yeah, it
to
is.
say that. And the other 5% was unsure at this time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
yet to develop,
okay. Now, within that, what we also know is there are other indicators that we ask the school to report back on, because again, we need to see relationship with businesses as a partnership.
Yeah.
It's a partnership with
Yeah,
schools. So what we do know is punctuality, attendance, all increasing.
Yeah.
Now that means that less parents are going to get a fine,
Yeah.
and it's a fine that they can ill afford.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means
God.
that parents are getting their kids into school.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really improving is the attitude towards learning and behaviour. And of course, if your kids come home and
Academic
say,
results.
I've got a bully, or I've got somebody that's
Yeah.
disrupting the class, well, we know it can affect our children.
Yeah.
Well, so to see that impact of the attitude to learning and behaviour of the children we're supporting increase. And then the big one is overall well-being. I mean, we're getting like 85% back on that. But we also get feedback from families.
And that must be so rewarding for you and your team.
The quotes or the testimonial type feedback is always lovely to read. But statistically as well, there's a question we ask before and after. And the question is, my house feels like a home. The before score is 47%. The after score is 92.
Wow.
What an impact.
That's the bit where
Just for a bed.
Yeah.
Do you know what a difference?
because of what else it leads to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, we've got families that are maybe looking at 20 quid and saying, I'll think about 10 for food and 10 for the gas and electric. So this idea of even trying to think about 2 or 3 beds, which could 600 quid or whatever it is for, because it's such a mountain to try and climb.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, I can't even start climbing it. Because if we were to say, well, why don't you put £10 a week in savings? It's like it's a conversation for a different world.
Yeah.
When you are living with that kind of scarcity. So, it's to think that a family is now saying in such big increases that our house now feels like a home. That's what we do it for.
Yeah.
So there's somewhere safe and secure for those kids that they can kind of get wrapped up warm at night and have a good night's sleep.
So if anybody wanted to get involved, and I believe there's a Just Giving donation page, so people can, anybody from a penny up to £1,000 can get involved and easily donate.
So people will be able to search for the Wakefield bed campaign,
Yeah.
and they'll be able to donate that way. If anybody wanted to find out more about the work of Zarach, then they can go to our website and they'll be able to find more. So things like volunteering. If people are interested in that, then they can come to us. There is a level of match funding that Prosper, Leeds Community Foundation and the partners. I mean, again, let's just talk about that for a sec. I reached out to somebody that I knew from days gone by in Wakefield, and I said, we're not in Wakefield and we need to be.
Yeah.
And they were saying, yeah, we agree. And they quickly put Prosper Leeds Community Foundation, Wakefield Community Foundation round the table and said, okay, let's have this conversation and let's make this happen.
Yeah.
So what's been incredible is the speed at which we've been able to make something happen in Wakefield. The big ask that we need to place on people is we've been able to get resources to do this work up to Christmas. But kids need it beyond Christmas. And it's that combination of the volunteering plus the financial support.
Yeah.
And the big one is just making connections.
Yeah.
So we're all on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you think about your network.
Well, we've been sharing
It's
it.
been all over our SoluPak company page, and I just personally have done the same, and on my personal as well.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned about we're not doing the Christmas client gifts, but this is our kind of project, isn't it, for the next foreseeable?
Yeah.
Obviously working with Prosper, Juice and SoluPak are going to be pushing this
into
for the long
next year.
term, because it's, we both want to be involved, don't we? And it's such a frightening but an amazing charity.
Yeah.
I think it resonates with absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
It can't not resonate, can it?
Our mission is to end childbed poverty. I just want to be clear that we are very genuine in that. We're not a charity that should be here.
Yeah.
Right now, we shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
There are some charities that are what I would call perpetual charities. They need to be there. Think about the RSPCA.
Yeah.
RSPCA needs to be there,
Yeah.
to do its work at a time when people need it. But we're in a society where we shouldn't need a Zarach. There are lots of charities that we just shouldn't need. So when we say that we're on a mission to end childbed poverty, it's very genuine. And one way of that is next time that a family needs beds, we want to track that they don't need us.
Yeah.
Right.
So imagine if somebody is able to go to a very reputable high street retailer, of which there are many, folks. I stayed away from naming anyone in particular. So unless they want to sponsor us, and then we can
Get in touch.
But if somebody goes to a high street retailer and is able to get a credit agreement to buy 2 new beds, to get a credit agreement off a reputable high street retailer is a sign of maybe some financial stability.
Yeah.
But if the next time that that family needs beds and it's the 2,000% loan shark, that's not what we want.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we want people to be able to kind of get to a point where they're saying, we do need beds now because, hey, guess what? 8 years have passed.
Yeah.
But we don't need Zarach. That's one thing. But at the bigger level, and I'll throw this one out for you. Imagine if every social housing provider who gives a new tenancy to a family with a school-aged child, if by law it had to offer a fully furnished tenancy. Because at the moment we are so far away from that.
The impact,
Okay. Well, that's hundreds of thousands of children out of that 900,000 figure that wouldn't need us.
Yeah,
Wow.
automatically be,
Now,
supplied.
95% of our families are in social or private rented.
Right.
So if we were thinking market share and commercial, we wouldn't want a policy that would take away hundreds of thousands of people who need us.
Yeah.
But we are not a commercial market share business. We are here to eradicate this particular situation because it shouldn't exist. We want to campaign for those kinds of policies because we would just celebrate the day when it happens.
Yeah.
And that is easily achievable, isn't it?
If I get nerdy on it, I think the financial and operational solution between government and social housing providers has to change.
Yeah.
It can't be done in the way it's currently funded.
Yeah.
But we're back to the bit. 4.3 million children are our infrastructure of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're going to borrow
That's where the investment
for infrastructure,
needs to be. Yeah.
get that done. And make sure that when these tenancies are offered, that actually it's fully furnished. Yeah. There's so much evidence out there already about the positive impact of a fully furnished tenancy in social housing.
Yeah.
But that's because you've got forward-thinking social housing providers that are doing little bit pockets of work.
Yeah.
It just needs to be a bigger
Just not
deal.
the whole.
Yeah.
You know. So there's the work we do every day, but there's the work we want to, all that learning. Because I didn't even answer your question before about how many beds.
I was going to say at the end, but we got there in the end.
Sidetracked.
Well, we were able to get coverage on Look North a few weeks ago because we just surpassed our 10,000th bed.
Wow.
Since
That's
we were
amazing.
formed. We've now got 60% of the activity we do, which is outside of Leeds, which is where we were started. So that's the kind of demonstration that we are now trying to reach children in other parts of the country. So we're now present in all the 5 districts of West Yorkshire, Tees Valley, Liverpool, Stoke, Stockport, Romford. You know, we're talking to other places that have said, we need you. But we are a charity, and it means that we don't get to go there without voluntary support, without people making connections, without the support of the bed industry, without businesses that say, actually, you know, there's a bit we can do here.
We want to get involved.
We've got one boy. He's an 8-year-old kid, and he was speaking to his mum on the school run, and they were talking about Zarach, and she sent us a message, and she said, for his birthday in December, you know where this is going, don't you?
Yeah.
For his birthday in December, he said, I want people to fundraise for me, so for £150 to get a bed for Zarach. So she shared the message, and I said to her, if we've got children wanting to help other children,
Maybe
they can see the issue and the need.
Aww.
tomorrow's
I know.
Look at us.
but tomorrow's not as bleak as we think if that's what we've got.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I
Yeah,
think
but
the
that's
bit
just
that we can look forward
amazing,
to.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But from that, her friend, who is a grandma, said, we've heard about what he's doing, and now my grandson now wants to do the same.
So like, it's continuing
that
that
little
ripple
ripple
effect,
effect.
isn't it? Of not just the help you're
How
giving,
lovely.
but the message that you're providing as well.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And I know that time is always kind of
Yeah.
pressured on these things. And I think that, you know, from a Zarach point of view, the support we've had from the community in Wakefield, both from Prosper, from the Community Foundation, from all the partners that they're in touch with to enable this to happen. The support from businesses like yourself that give this the best shot of continuing beyond the Christmas period, which is what we want to try and do. You know, the support that we've had locally has been incredible. It took a couple of weeks and there was already 80 schools registered with us.
Amazing.
I mean, it's not
but
fantastic,
that's not amazing,
but,
yeah.
The fact that you're able to reach the children that need it so readily is a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, growth in the charity world is quite a bittersweet thing.
Yeah.
You know, the growth for us is we take pride in rising to the challenge that's there.
Yeah.
But if all we wanted to do was just deliver beds, that's called job protection.
Yeah.
What we want to do is learn from what the families tell us, and where families feel comfortable, we want to give them the microphone. We want them to tell their story to the people that make the decisions. But where we're in situations where we can be their champion, then that's the bit where we want to say, this isn't our agenda, government. This is the voice of the thousands of families
what's needed.
that we're supporting.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of really big thanks that the fact that we're able to even sit here and do this, because without the support from folks in Wakefield, we just wouldn't be here. So,
well, we're over the moon that we were asked to be involved.
Absolutely.
We couldn't think of a better campaign to support, really.
Yeah.
So we're 100% invested in it.
Thank you.
And thank you for speaking to us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed our inspiring guests. If you'd like to get involved or learn more, you can scan the QR code on screen or visit linktr.ee/prosperwakefield.